What started as like a creative outlet for you just to have some fun, during a challenging time turned into something that resonated with a lot of people. Welcome to the Wellable Weekly podcast, where we talk about key topics and trends at the intersection of well-being, technology, and HR. I'm Geoff. I'd like to welcome a very special guest to the podcast this week, Jamie Jackson. In addition to being the self-proclaimed Chief Meme Officer, Jamie is one of the hosts for the HR Besties podcast. She's the founder of Humorous Misery Media, and she has an impressive background in a number of different HR leadership roles. You had posts at Tractor Supply, Marriott, CareSpot. So Jamie, welcome to the podcast. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I mean, Chief Meme Officer, that is an incredible title, a different take on the traditional CMO role. So yeah, tell me a little bit about that. I'd love to hear more about your background and kind of how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, so I kind of fell into HR. I think a lot of HR professionals fall into it. We don't, dream when we are younglings. I want to be an HR professional where everyone hates me. I fell into it in college. I actually was working at Sears. Yeah, rest in peace. And I was working in the jewelry department. I know they sold ovens and jewelry, oddly enough. And my boss was promoted to the HR manager, and she said, "Hey, would you want to come back there and be my HR assistant?" And I was like, what are the hours? Because let's be honest, I'm in college. Will this get me out at a better hours that I could go to football games? I went to the University of Tennessee, so go Vols.
Go Vols.
Football was a big deal. And I was like, is this going to get me more drinking time? So yes, I went back there, but I actually really enjoyed it. And the things that I'm doing, obviously I was doing a lot of like admin stuff for her, but I didn't even realize I just really enjoyed helping people. And it could have been something simple, right? It could have been helping them understand their benefits a little bit better, or understanding their paycheck or whatever. And there was a lot of college students there. So even me, I was learning things that I didn't even understand. So it was really enlightening, and I was just a business major at the time, and so I didn't change my major, but my major turned into still business, but it was for human resource development, and that's just kind of where I have landed in my career the last 23 years. And so in 2020, of course, the pandemic, I found myself working for a nonprofit clinic. We had 4 locations, and I was the HR director, and I was the department of one. And it was scary, to be completely honest. I felt like I had no idea what I was doing. I felt underqualified, and I had all this responsibility to take care of not only our employees, but our patients, right? But also everyone our employees touch, like their family, and all the patients as well, right? Their family, who they were touching, because COVID was scary and we didn't really know much about it. And I just felt very alone, because being a department of one, HR is typically like a really lean department. And that's when I created my meme page, Humorous Resources, in September of 2020. And I just started creating memes, and I had no goal to become anything. It was just some way for me to kind of be silly and goofy. And I figured there had to be other people like me out there going, what the heck are we supposed to do right now? Because every day we were coming in, and I was checking the CDC website, because things were literally changing overnight. And I just felt, it was an immense amount of pressure, but I had Humorous Resources to kind of take that edge off for me, and it exploded. And then in the summer, July of 21, I said, I have actually more that I want to do. And I created Millennial Misery, because I'm an elder millennial, and I have so many, great nostalgic memories. And so that's kind of when I coined Chief Meme Officer, because I'm like, I'm making all these memes. I'm still hidden, like wasn't showing my face at this point, because I'm still a professional girly, right? And that's kind of where I coined Chief Meme Officer, because I have all these memes and all these meme pages now. So now I even have a parenting meme page, and then I have my own meme page. Yeah.
It's so cool. What started as like a creative outlet for you, just to
Mm-hmm.
have some fun, during a challenging time, turned into something
Mm-hmm.
that resonated with a lot of people,
Yeah.
and caught momentum from there. I mean, your story arc is everyone is unique, right? But that fundamental desire to help people in a business setting seems to be the tie that binds a lot of HR professionals. Yet, as you joked, right, there's this element of being hated, or
Mm-hmm.
HR being perceived as the villain. You've got
Yes.
CEOs in the news like Ryan Breslow from Bolt claiming he got rid of HR when he really just renamed the team. But then you do have legitimate cuts like Uber just saw
Yes.
this past week cut a
Mm-hmm.
quarter of their HR team. So, I mean, what is your kind of take on like why HR just seems to get blamed for everything when, and it seems like so many folks have good intentions, right?
Well, yeah, and don't get me wrong. I think there are bad HR people, but there's bad everyone, right? Like there's bad CEOs, there's bad accountants, and I think a lot of times HR is villainized because we're a lot of times the people that are communicating these poor decisions from leadership. And it doesn't mean that we haven't pushed back or we haven't voiced our opinions or concerns, but it doesn't mean that these leadership or the CEOs are even listening to us, or do they even care what we have to say? So, I think I like to, another thing that I like to do on social media is like I try to say, look, I'm also an employee. So these policies, for instance, like I remember one time a company that I was working at, they were changing the policy that we were no longer going to roll over. It was a pretty generous rollover of our PTO every year, and they were slashing it to only 40. And I fought like tooth and nail to keep it to our old. And I mean, I fought it and I fought it and I fought it and I fought as hard as I could, but ultimately I lost. But it's something like that, right? I mean, like I can't do anything about that, but I'm unfortunately the one having to say in the meeting, maybe it's a town hall today, effective blah, blah, blah. Next, you will no longer be able to roll over this amount. You will only be be able to roll over 40 hours. And so you look like the villain because you're communicating these things, or maybe you are the one that are processing the termination, or you are the one that is having that difficult conversation. Maybe the manager's present, but they're not doing the talking. Maybe the manager has come to you 7 or 8 times about this employee, but they can't, you know what I mean? They're not the ones. So I think a lot of times people don't actually understand what HR does or the role that HR plays. And that's why I've tried very hard on social media and a lot of other HR content creators and even HR besties. What we've tried to do is kind of shine a light on what HR actually is and what we try to do, because I think there's a common misconception of what we are, and this weird, like, that we hold so much power that we don't. And we don't actually hold as much power as I think people as people think we do. And the best companies I've ever worked for is when HR actually does have a seat at the table and we are allowed to be vocal about things, and we are able to be like, hey, this is not going to fly well with employees. Or I'm able to say to my boss candidly, like, hey, I just had a conversation with so and so, and I'm bubbling this up because I'm also concerned. And those are the companies that truly listen. Those have the best culture. So when I see something like Uber slashing, a half of their HR department, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, because Uber bragged for years and years about their culture. And, that was such a huge hiring tactic for them, was their culture selling point. But how are they able to maintain that culture if they don't have someone there to constantly maintain it? And that's a huge piece of HR that I don't think people actually realize.
You've said before that HR has very little power but wields a lot of influence, and I think that example you gave of your own experience really reflects that, right? Of having a strong position on a potential benefit change, but not being able to help see that through or kind of get the result you're looking for. I mean, but that example, I don't know exactly when that happened, but I mean, now we are seeing companies in the news pulling back, some quietly and some, again, pretty publicly, on 401k matches, health benefits shrinking. I mean, are you hearing that from your community as well, in addition to kind of what we're seeing in the headlines? And if so, what do you feel like HR pros should be fighting for right now?
Absolutely, and it's been insanely disappointing because I've read the 401k match. Like, companies are stopping 401k matches. Some companies are completely rolling back some benefits that they're offering, or I think benefits in general has been a huge one because our healthcare system is just it's been increasingly over the years gotten worse, and those increases have impacted our not only the company but the employees. And a lot of times those companies are like, we're just going to pass this 25% increase to the employees, and it's so hard to see. And it's been such a weird shift the last year or two to watch these companies do that. And I feel like employees, because the job market is the way that it is right now, and it's very volatile, and there's the highest unemployment rate right now, is you feel stuck at the job. So you are unfortunately having to deal with these insanely high premiums on your health benefits, or you're no longer receiving your 401k. I've just lost the word. You're no longer receiving the company match for your 401k.
Right.
Yeah. Or you're for instance, even something silly they're no longer offering an EAP. Like, a lot of companies don't even realize the EAP is typically one of the cheapest things you can offer. But it's also the easiest, and it's widely used if HR providers know how to properly use it. I should say, or properly advertise it. It's not like something that we get points for if we advertise it or anything, but it's an incredible resource. So it's really it's insane to see that, and it makes me so sad. And I think for HR professionals, I don't know if there's much we can do but to keep fighting and try the best we can to keep fighting for those resources for our employees. And I think how you make that cause is a recruiting tool. And and that to get employees to come to your business. But not even that, is once we get over this hump of the job market the way it is, that's still going to be a recruiting tactic. Like, hey, my employer didn't change my benefits, didn't take away my 401k match, they didn't take away this, or my PTO stayed the same, and I want to go work for so and so's company, and that's what I think should be like. This company is the company I want to work for because this is the reason why.
It is. You feel like it's a dangerous game for employers to play, to really ride that ebb and flow of the labor market and make longer term benefits decisions and policy decisions, kind of based on what they feel like is doable, whether or not it's the right thing to do, or it's something that shows that they really care. But I mean, of course, we've been talking about so many areas where things are being cut, and maybe more of a negative point of view on it. But there's got to be some beams of light out there, right? Where again, in the community that you interact with, where have you seen instances where companies are still doing things that show they actually care?
That's so. It's that.
Jamie, are you still there?
I'm like, God, have I? maybe I'm, oh gosh, I'm like, have I seen any?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to be honest. Actually, I noticed on one of your email responses, back and forth, and I'm going to brag on Wellables real quick, that I noticed you guys had, and this is, y'all did not pay me to say this. That I am recording this for free. Y'all had that you have summer Fridays, and I
We
thought that
do.
was such a cool thing, because you just don't see that very often. And well, especially not anymore. I haven't had a summer Friday since probably 2014, 2015.
Is that right?
So yeah, like that's a big deal. Like I think that's really cool that there's still companies out there that are still like allowing people to jet off on a Friday, even at like noon, and
Yeah.
or 1 o'clock or even 3 o'clock, just a couple hours, and say, hey, have a good weekend. It's the summer. Go relax somewhere. Don't think about work. I love that.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. It's very kind of you to call out. Wasn't the intent of the question, but kind of a nice bonus. It's actually something that's been in place since I joined. So I'm going on 7 years now at Wellable, and it's been of course, as you can imagine, very popular policy
Yeah.
with the team. And something maybe because of our roots in Boston, right? New England, the summers are shorter. You really get to try to enjoy the time and sunlight and long days that you have, and it's something that we felt like made a big difference on the overall happiness and well-being of our team, and something that we felt like was manageable with the right processes in place to ensure that we're still getting our work done and have kind of the same output, because of course that's still a
Yeah.
metric that like businesses are going to care about. But I just feel like in this day and age, with all the productivity tools we have at our disposal, ways to stay on top of that and just get things done more efficiently, it's never been more achievable.
Oh,
And I'm
for
just
sure.
like a personal like kind of obsession of mine right now is this concept of the 4-day work week, and
Oh
how
my
there have
God,
been some
yes.
really successful trials of that.
Yes.
Not maybe as much in the U.S., but certainly in other parts of the world. And I think with all of the bluster about the gains in productivity with AI and how there's so much we can do, I think that's all great, and I'm all for it. But I do think there could be a version of how that is more attainable than ever because of all these great new technologies that we're adopting, and maybe it gives folks more time back. And whether it's summer Fridays or again that 4-day work week, that could be more of a reality in our lifetime than we ever once
Yes.
thought possible.
Yes, I love the idea of a 40 work week. I think I read somewhere semi recently something like 40-year-olds plus, and I'm in my 40s. I would like that they need a 4-day work week, and I fully support. Like I could totally get my normal 40 plus hour work week done in 4 days, easy. Like please.
Yeah, and again, there's studies out there from some of these
I'd
companies that
support it. Yeah.
have tried these pilots, and they've seen the same, if not more, productivity. So that's definitely something that we'll continue to be champions of. One thing, Jamie, that we talked about recently was the certainly the power of humor, and in terms of how HR can kind of lean into that at times, but also how you handle a really polarizing political environment, right? And how that translates into difficult conversations, or where to establish, boundaries, in the workplace. So, I mean, from an HR perspective, of course, you can think of the example where an intervention is required to, maybe address an employee dispute, right? But before you
Yeah.
even, get there, what are your thoughts around how companies can kind of set the ethos around politics in the workplace, and whether healthy discussion of all kinds related to what's in the news is okay as long as you're respectful, versus just more firm boundaries.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a really challenging time that we're kind of going through right now. And I think everyone is entitled to their opinion, whether you think it's right or wrong. And I think it's okay to have some friendly discussion within the workplace. And I think that kind of makes what America was supposed to be, right? I mean, we're all supposed to have able to have our own opinions on things. However, we do have to work with one another, and we do have to find some sort of harmony. So there is a fine line that you do have to walk. Now, I'm not one to say no political conversation. Like I have been, I think it was like in 2016 when Trump first took office. I did work at a place where they were like, no one, we're not talking about it at
Yeah.
all.
That's an extreme strategy, right?
Yeah, and I was like,
yeah.
that's a little insane. But I mean, I do think that it's okay to have a conversation, but like, I do think that if we're getting to the point where like, like for instance, there's like you're wearing a hat or you have a flag up or you know what I mean? Like if there are things that are in your office that are offensive to other people, like then we need to have a conversation. And because it's not offensive to you doesn't mean it's not offensive to someone else. And like a lot of times that conversation is always an interesting one to have with someone because they always want to make an argument. Well, but like it's not offensive to me. And it's like I do not care if it's not offensive to you. The point is this is work, and unfortunately this is not your house, this is not your car, this is work. And this is a lot of times where those silly policies about like how you decorate your office or your cube or whatever come into play. And it's because someone did, and it's not necessarily politically, but maybe someone, hung crazy photos. Maybe it was Playboy, all over their cube. And we had to enact this policy because someone did something crazy to their office or cube. So it's really walking a fine line and, respecting people's opinions, but also being able to have healthy conversations and hopefully not having to have HR or leadership involved in those healthy conversations too. And that's I will say that is unfortunately where I do see a lot of things is things get so heated, and I see it a lot obviously on social media. Like people are so quick to jump to like I mean extremes. And so and then I see people constantly getting doxxed and it gets sent to their workplace. And
Yeah.
I'm just like, just be careful out there, people, because next thing you know, you'll say something online and it's getting sent to your work. Like there was a man in Tennessee who actually, I guess he posted Charlie Kirk beam. I'm not entirely sure. He was fired from his job and actually was thrown in jail.
Wow.
He was released. The charges were thrown out. All of it was thrown out. But once again, freedom of speech, whether you agree or disagree. And that's the fine line that we're walking right now. And it's such a politically charged environment that we're living in. And it's just so difficult. And it's there's a part of me that's happy that I am unemployed at the moment.
Well, I mean, you brought up a good point that the original playbook for managing this type of thing was more physical in nature. It's how you represented yourself in the office, things you hung in your workspace or something like that. But the game has totally changed with the switch to more hybrid role, right? And also the advancement of social media. And now organizations are certainly looking at their staff as a representation of the brand, and a company may very well have policies about if you are identifying yourself as an employee of XYZ company on Facebook or another platform, you are a representation of the brand, and taking strong stances on any number of topics might fall afoul of those policies. But that's why it's even more important to clarify and communicate them, because somebody on a Saturday, when they're on Facebook or whatever platform, they're not necessarily thinking of that if they haven't really dug in. Like, well, what, well, is there any restrictions on what I can say
Yeah.
because I've got my company tagged up here. So I bet that happens quite often where people are getting these reports, right, are being funneled into
Yeah.
HR of folks who are
Well,
kind of saying things on social media.
yeah, I actually I saw online this week that a North Carolina man was caught on video. It was a road rage incident, and he was went on a racist tirade. But he had his work shirt on with the logo, so of course he got fired. But I even when I was employed, I was laid off, by the way, y'all. When I was employed, I had someone also reach out anonymously to us. It was a TikTok that someone didn't believe in COVID, but she was a nurse, and I worked in healthcare. So I, of course, did some digging and come to find out it was a nurse that we had, same name, different person. But yeah, I mean, people love to dox other people, and even myself. I mean, I made content, and a lot of times, employees love to tell on me. I mean, they did. They and because they're like, "Oh my gosh, Jamie's making content," and they're like, "That you have no idea whether I made it on the weekend or I made it this morning or last night, and I scheduled to post it." But and I get it. I mean, everyone. I think sometimes people are just looking to poke the bear.
Yeah. I mean, to that point, right? I mean, is it something, how much you want to get into this, but do you feel like the transition into content and, poking the bear a little bit through these memes is something that one way or another kind of led you to, be more on this entrepreneurial path versus, staying the course with a more quote unquote traditional path in corporate HR?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think when I was laid off, I was devastated because I was like, what am I supposed to do? I was laid off April of 25, and that's all I've done for the last 23 years was human resources. And I kind of went through just a really weird dark phase where I didn't realize how tied to my job I was. I did not realize how needed I needed to be, if that makes any sense. But like I just thoroughly enjoyed being able to assist people. Like it could be something simple, right? I mean, and I was a director role. Like I didn't necessarily, I mean, I handled complex things, but I also enjoyed sometimes doing the very simple things because I just enjoyed helping people.
Right.
And so it's like this weird shift that I had to go through. And, I've looked for another job. I've done some consulting, but I've really tried to focus on kind of making whatever I'm doing work, which is my memes and podcasting. And I don't know what the future holds, but I know that this job market is kind of a nightmare right now. And maybe this is not the best time for me to try to find another job. And that's okay. And I'm just going to try to do whatever this is in the
Yeah.
meantime.
Love that. Love that. And for all the folks listening, where is the best place to find some of your incredible memes and your podcast?
Yeah, so the podcast is called HR Besties. You can find us anywhere we get podcasts, anywhere you listen. We're the number one HR podcast. Woo! And,
Hello.
and and that is with and that is with two other ladies that I'm sure you know. It's Ashley Hurd, she's at the Manager Method, and then Lee Henderson, and she's at HR Manifesto on IG. And then I am mostly on Instagram, but you can find me also on Facebook and TikTok, and that is at humorous_resources, at millennial_misery, or if you want to actually just follow me, which is scary, it's at the_chief meme officer.
That one's easy to remember. Nice. Well, Jamie, thank you so much for joining the podcast today. Thrilled to have you on as a guest. And again, for all those listening to Wellable Weekly, just like Jamie, you can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you again.